All right, good morning, guys. This morning we're going to be talking about Pam Bondi and the unforced error, the arguments about hate speech, and good God, I just uh, okay. So let's start here. I'm going to borrow the clip from Brooklyn Dad Defiant, so we can take a and we're going to watch the clip, and then we're going to take a look at his actual commentary because he's a shitbag, but broken clocks, right? Uh, Pitt Danny asks, has anyone seen the text message from the Charlie Kirk shooter? Take a good look. It don't seem right at all. It's it's strange. Uh, but I don't want to get distracted right now. I want to focus on the Pam Bondi thing. So let's go.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Okay, that right there. She said there's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there's no place in our society, especially for what happened to Charlie. Fire this bitch. Donald, please fire this idiot. Okay? So let me back you up a little bit. When Pam Bondi was going through the confirmation hearings, I pointed out that it was funny that she's kind of hot, right? Basic. She's hot in that very basic kind of consumer soda pop, blonde bimbo kind of way. And, credit where it's due, that's impressive she's 62 now or 61, right? So this is a 60-some-year-old woman. It was hilarious to watch her being grilled by women in their 50s that look like, just a trash bag full of leaves and assholes. And that was all very funny and very amusing. But even then, I kept banging this drum, pointing this out. This is Pam Bondi. This is red flag Barbie. She went full on for red flags. So from the rip, I was not a fan of Pam Bondi, right? I've been a big fan of Donald Trump and the work he's done and the policy positions he's taken. But Don, I need you to hear me. I need you to hear me. Titties are not competence. Okay? Tulsi's great, sure. But, reformed lib. And here's part of the problem is Donald Trump himself is a reformed Democrat. And I guess that translates to his belief that some of these people, some of these reformed leftists, reformed liberal lefties, it's hard to call them liberals. When she's talking about hate speech, this is not complicated. Okay? There are exceptions in the law for certain types of speech that are not protected by the First Amendment. And there's a good argument to be made that some of those exceptions go too far. What's the difference between adult entertainment material? Try not to use the P word so we stay online. What's the difference between adult material and unacceptable adult material? Hell, it's difficult in a legal sense to draw a distinction between what is art, right? Like a Botticelli, right? And what is erotica? And where's the line between what is a reasonable amount of sexual engagement, say in a story, just a story that's not explicitly erotica? Where's the line? Where does it go from being a story about people who fall in love and sex is a component of that to just being smut, right? And that can be a very difficult line to draw. You might be looking at a work that is a work of art by an artist who's bad at art and bad at writing a sex scene, or bad at incorporating the sexual component of a romantic relationship into what would otherwise just be a story, right? A composition. And it blurs the line because, well, look, brother, I know you weren't trying to write a penthouse letter, but you did. Okay. And I use that example because it's the one that has been argued in the courts the most. Where is the line between one man's vulgarity as another man's lyric? And the difference between celebrating a murder, which, while I will not advocate for celebrating political violence of this sort, I will say that it is protected speech, right? Expressing my opinion, if I wanted to express the opinion that I was elated by the sudden and dramatic demise of a political opponent, okay, cool, protected free speech. Now, I have it on good authority, that would be the Democrats, that freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequence, right? The whole cancel culture thing. And we talked about it extensively yesterday on what's going on with the firing of teachers and nurses, et cetera, of people who were going online and actively celebrating the grotesque demise of Charlie Kirk. Let me be clear about something here. That is free speech. If they're just saying, oh man, that's awesome, we got him, et cetera, that's free speech. When they put out a list and it says Donald Trump, Ben Shapiro, Tim Pool, blah, 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 you're next, that is not an expression of an opinion. That should be treated the same as actively soliciting an assassin. But what is hate speech? Now, I'll grant there is such a thing as one might call hate speech as a general category, right? Saying all blacks are lazy, all Mexicans are dirty, all Jews have pointy noses and pockets full of shekels. Okay. Go ahead and make the argument that speech is hateful. But here's the thing. Sometimes speech that is hateful, speech that strikes someone as hateful, like, hey, the vast majority of all violent crimes are committed by black men between the ages of 16 and 35. And I mean the vast majority. Like, in the absence of that statistic, we live in a country that is statistically without crime. Vast fucking majority. Well, that's hate speech. Yeah, well, you know what? I'm still allowed to say it. Because as it turns out, sometimes speech that one finds hateful is true. Sometimes the reason a person finds speech hateful is because you're pointing out something that is true and it makes them uncomfortable because they might feel some responsibility. Right? Factual hate speech. Yes, Patrick. Exactly. Now, Bondi goes on later to try and clarify. So, Fox News has this article related to her clarification. Pam Bondi clarifies hate speech comments after getting blowback. Attorney General Pam Bondi is receiving pushback on social media from both liberals and conservatives after she suggested that hate speech could be prosecuted under the law during a podcast interview on Monday. Now, this is especially interesting. It says from both liberals and conservatives. So we're getting this is a whole other flavor of that whole two sides argument. Okay, no. The radical left has a near entirely complete monopoly on violence. They're going to try to point to January 6th, and I bring that up in this context specifically for a very important reason. They're going to point to January 6th and say that was political violence. And fair play. There was some stuff that happened at January 6th that was unacceptable, that was over the line. But we've seen the videos. We've seen the thousands of hours of surveillance footage. And it's very clear that what happened on January 6th is there was a legitimate peaceful MAGA protest in front of the building, and there was a violent Antifa black bloc protest behind the building. Inside the building, the police escorted tourists who walked between the velvet ropes, and there were a few spots where some terrorists broke through a window to try and frame the right for a little bit of destruction of property. And there were maybe $1 million or so worth of damage done, and that's only because your fucking construction prices are overinflated. I think some artwork was damaged. Do you know what did not happen on January 6th? Nobody in a MAGA hat loudly declared a vocal affirmation of his political opinion and then immediately shot and murdered someone wearing a Biden t-shirt or something like that. Okay, fair play. Biden didn't have merch because he's a bitch. But what did not happen? You did not see MAGA hat wearing pro-Trump patriots just straight murdering people. Which is interesting, since we had just spent a fucking year watching Democrats murder people. And guys, I'm sorry. I'm dropping F-bombs. I'm getting a little excited, a little riled up here. And I'm sorry. I apologize. Yesterday, when the show ended, after I was a little spun up on yesterday's show, I told you I'd try to bring up something more mellow, more affirmative, more positive this morning. But then Pam Bondi, Red Flag Barbie, had to come out and wave the hate speech flag and completely fuck up the whole timeline. Fire this idiot. Donald, if there's one thing I can get through to you, I hope it's the titties aren't competent. Right? Your bikini measurements do not belong on a resume, sweetheart. Oh. And Patrick says it's hard to be mellow with the current events, brother. It is. It really is. It really, really is. But this is that both sides thing again. So let me explain to you what hate speech is in the sense of a political expression. For the last 20 years, 30 years, we've been hearing college professors, campus activists, Democrats say that we need to ban hate speech, we need to censor and police hate speech. They've told us that silence is violence, speech is violence. They've talked to us about microaggressions and systemic this and your white privilege, et cetera, et cetera. And they've told us that being a white male makes you a terrorist. Just not being proud about being white, not being a member of a white supremacy organization. No, that merely being white makes you a white supremacist and therefore an evil and hateful person. And that has all been to justify, right, speech is violence. To justify, if you say words I don't like, I'm allowed to murder you in self-defense. That's the argument that they've been putting forward for literally decades now. Pam Bondi coming out and saying that she's going to prosecute hate speech. Okay. She goes and she tries to clarify, because the idea of prosecuting hate speech, that's them. That's the left. That is the enemy that seeks to tear down this country and abolish the Constitution, because it is such a powerful instrument to prevent the worst of us from imposing our will on everyone else. Barack Obama famously wrote in one of his autobiographies that he hated the Constitution because it made it so hard to get his policies through and to pursue left-wing policy objectives. He hated the Constitution because, and he presumably still does, because we haven't lost that piece of shit yet. He said that he hates the Constitution because it handcuffs the government and prevents it from doing more. And that right there demonstrates the disconnect. Barry, that's the point. That government governs best, which governs least. The point to the Constitution is to shackle you, is to shackle the government. If I had my way, winning an election would mean being immediately fitted with a pair of concrete shoes, ankle irons, shackles, and big fluffy mittens, and a muzzle. And then you would go about, you would be allowed to do whatever it was that you could accomplish in those circumstances as a politician. I can hardly imagine one politician whose absence I would mourn, whose absence I would lament today. Hardly one. Yeah, I'm struggling to come up with a name. Maybe the Donald. But at the rate we're going, I ain't exactly elated about how the president is moving forward of late. Too slow. I was very happy with how fast Donald Trump was moving. Obviously, I've just made the argument that the point of the Constitution is to slow government down and make it do things slower. I was very happy at how fast the president was moving when he first took office earlier this year, but precisely because the thing that he was moving fastest at was dismantling government. And that, shrinking government is the only thing that government should do quickly. Now, back to the article. So Pam tries to walk it back. The Attorney General took to X on Tuesday to clarify her position, noting that hate speech would only be prosecuted when the language used crossed the line of calling for violence. So drop the phrase hate speech. It's not hate speech, you stupid idiot. She says hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. It's a crime. Yes, and it's not hate speech. Hate speech and threats of violence are two distinct categories, and that is an incredibly important distinction to make. That's the problem, Pam. That's the problem. It's that using the word hate speech in this context is an incredibly telling and unforced error. It tells me that that at your very core, you are the sort of person that supports those policies put forward by the people who murdered Charlie Kirk. Do you know what the hate speech argument is for? I just laid it out, right? Speech is violence, silence is violence. Therefore, we're allowed to respond with violence. If you say naughty words, I'm allowed to punch you in the face. Hey, let's punch a Nazi, right? You had the guy that played the sheriff in Stranger Things go to accept an award, and his award speech. In his award speech, he said, "We need to get out there and punch some people in the face." And all the actors and directors, Hollywood cheered for that. This is their point. This is their talking point. This is what they're saying to justify the murder of Charlie Kirk. They're saying that he deserved to die because he said words that they hate. That's what hate speech is. When somebody talks about hate speech, what they mean is you're saying words that I hate. And I'm allowed to hate you for it. And you know what? Hey, fair play. You are allowed to hate me for saying things that you hate hearing. Good on you. Enjoy that. I'm allowed to hate you for sucking up my tax dollars, for depressing my economy, for making me literally unsafe at home. Y'all, we're in Garrison right now. I shouldn't have to worry about gunfights when I'm in Garrison. As much as I miss them, you know, it's nice to take your shoes off every now and then and not have to return fire. And I've been home for over a decade and not had to get in a flipping gunfight. Not had to return fire because some asshole decided that it was my time to die. And, oh, by the way, all those assholes that thought that it was my time to go, they had something in common. They're not here anymore. Oh, it's been a while. It's been a while. Okay, so she goes on to clarify. Cameron, I see your comment about the mic. I'm just going to drive forward. If the audio quality this morning is lesser than what I would prefer it to be, I'm not going to mess with it right now. I'm going to read this. So she says, hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. This sentence is not true because it includes the word hate. If she had said speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment, that would be true. But as a legal entity, hate speech is a distinct thing which is not governed in the same way. So, yeah, dropping an N-bomb on somebody might be hate speech, but it's not a threat of violence. And a threat of violence, hey, I'm going to murder you with my gun. That's a threat of violence. And it may seem like murdering somebody with a gun is a hateful act, but that's an important distinction. And I know this gets in the weeds a little bit, but the distinction there is that the act is the hateful thing, not the speech. But declaring your intent or soliciting the commission of a crime is an element of crime. So while speaking to Kate Miller, the wife of White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller on her podcast Monday, Bondi stated that the federal government will target those who leverage hate speech against others following the assassination of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. And guys, I want you to avoid making a mistake here. There is a mistake that some conservatives are going to make here. And that is, you know what? I want the government to go after the people that made Charlie die. I want the government to chase down and prosecute and destroy and remove from my life the monsters that murdered Charlie Kirk. I want that too. But how it's done does matter. And throwing away the First Amendment is not how we get that done. So why can't I offer any charity to Pam Bondi on this mistake? I'll say this, and this is what I'm going to close on this morning. This is an unforced error. This is a big unforced error. Right? I'm happy to give grace when someone misspeaks or commits an error and is able to correct it quickly. Sure. And I'll even give some grace to Pam Bondi and say, you know what, sweetheart, I don't have to hate you. I don't have to stay mad at you. But here's the thing. Between red flag law support, the botching of the Epstein case, and a few others, this is one too far. This is one too many. This is an unforced error in a long line, in a long chain of severe unforced errors. And we cannot continue like this. Pam Bondi has got to go. The Epstein files unforced error, that debacle, that absolute botch job, did more harm to the Republican Party and the U.S. Constitution than anything else that's happened to this administration. It gave more ammunition to the enemy than any other fumble that we've seen politically in a while. And fair play, the left owns the media space, and so every time our politicians on the right commit even a small error, it becomes amplified and magnified to the umpteenth degree. All while the mainstream conversation just slides off of Biden's Afghanistan withdrawal or Hunter's laptop, etc. Sure, they're good at obfuscating and hiding things, and they're very good at amplifying and magnifying things. But that just makes it more important for Trump's appointees to be competent and effective. And Pam Bondi is neither of those things. She has to go. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in her right there. I appreciate y'all this morning. Thanks for watching. Actually, hey, I tell you what, I see a large number of people watching who haven't commented yet. I'll give you a minute to go ahead and drop a comment in the live chat. And I'm looking for a couple of names I don't recognize. Let me see two or three new people in the live chat, and I'll give away one of the freebies. Give away a free month of Rumble Premium. And I'm not going to read an ad today because nobody's offering enough money to waste my time on. But let me see who's there. Do we have any new? Hey, Bruce Smith, I see you. You're right. This isn't good. You say it's no different than what Garland said. Remind me who you're talking about there. But I see Bruce and Charlie, both of you. I need you to be on Rumble, dropping a comment in the live chat to be eligible for the free month of premium. The way it works is I'll give away a free month of premium, and the computer randomly assigns it to somebody who meets three criteria. You have to be watching on Rumble, you have to be signed in with a free or premium account, and you have to have made a comment in the live chat during this show. Right? XC Scott gets it. There you go. All right. So Bruce Smith and Charlie, I'd love to get you guys over on Rumble, but if you haven't already, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe on wherever you're watching. Even if you're on the oh yeah. Remember the parents at school boards. I was going to talk about something related to that this morning. So I'll touch on this for a minute real quick while I give the rest of you guys time to hop over to Rumble and get signed in so that you can leave a comment and get a free 1 month membership. Um, so loosely related. So what he's talking about is Merrick Garland basically headed an effort to designate people as essentially domestic terrorists for being white, having children, and dispreferring the exposure of those children in public schools to not just LGBT educational material, but we're talking about books like This Book is Gay, uh, and I forget the name of the other one, but these are graphic instruction manuals on the conduct of sodomy and all manner of degeneracy that even went so far as to instruct young children on how to get signed up for Grindr apps, on how to use their smartphone to put themselves out there to get involved in sexual relationships with adult men. Right? So yesterday, there was a hearing, the FBI oversight hearing. Kash Patel testified. And at the beginning of the hearing, before Kash even started to testify and talk about the work that he's been doing, Grassley put out, hey, so I'm introducing the thing. Here's Kash Patel. We're going to ask some questions about what's going on with the FBI. But before we get started, let me just tell you, I've got whistleblowers. I've got evidence. I've been conducting investigations, and I have legitimate proof that throughout the Biden administration, the Chris Wray FBI, and y'all, Chris Wray is a traitor. The Chris Wray FBI was running the investigative operation Arctic Frost, which was conducting investigations seeking charges for things like domestic terrorism, etc., against the Trump campaign, the Republican National Committee, and yes, TPUSA, on a list of over 100 such conservative organizations. That's something that we're going to end up going into. Hopefully we can get through another day without red flag Barbie sticking her foot in her mouth, and we can go on and do that. But yeah, DPS report, Alex, exactly. The FBI was actively conducting investigations against TPUSA. For what? Right? The unverified bear says there is no off-ramp. Yeah, that's where we're at. There is no off-ramp. The Democrat Party is a terrorist organization and needs to be disbanded. That's where we're at. Pitt Danny says Grassley and Johnson are releasing whistleblower information. I think that's going to be huge. TPS report, yeah, they committed the crime of winning. Exactly. Hey, and that's TPS report. That's my buddy Alex, guys. He does his show on Mondays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 2100 for you real Americans, and it's a great show. It's worth watching just for cute little Danny. Y'all should go check him out. Make sure you give him a like and a follow. Okay, so I made a promise. I've given you guys plenty of time to get those extra comments in there. So here's your freebie coming at you. I'll throw you guys some shekels. Yeah, there you go. Or do what the Germans are doing. Just ban the opposition party. And Alex, I'm glad you. Hey, Alex, congratulations on winning the free membership. And Alex, I'm glad you specified do what the Germans are doing. Just ban the opposition party, and we do mean just ban the opposition party, because in Germany, what's happening? There's an opposition party called Alternative for Deutschland, which is okay. They're Germans. They're Europeans, right? So when we say it's their conservative right-wing party, okay, they're dramatically less socialist than the current left-wing party in power. But when you're talking about European politicians, there's no such thing as not socialists. But let's be real. What has happened, there was an election last week, I think, and a week prior to the election. Or maybe it's this week and it was 2 weeks prior to the election. Anyway, Germany has an imminent election coming up, and suddenly 7 or 8 members of the opposition party, the Alternative for Deutschland, were murdered, were assassinated. So, I'm glad you brought that up for me, Alex, because it's another reminder that it cannot be overstated, right? The DNC, sure, but oh, by the way, Antifa is an international organization. We don't need to label Antifa domestic terrorists, right? We don't need to cage it that way because it's an international organization. Legally, what Antifa is a terror organization that happens to have cells located domestically. So to put a finer point on that, you can understand it like this. Imagine Al-Qaeda had terror cells actively conducting assassinations, fomenting riots, setting fire to government buildings in America. Would we call that domestic terrorists? No. What Antifa is essentially the ISIS of communism, of transgenderism, of the whole sociopathic left-wing globo homo machine. That's what Antifa is. They're the faith militant of global slavery. So, we've done the giveaway. We've crossed the hour. We are done for today. Guys, thanks for watching this morning. We love you. Y'all be safe out there, guys, for real. Don't leave the house unarmed. Right? If you must go out there, stay strapped or get clapped. We love you. Be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.